Greetings. I am Color Nexus, the Ancient Gladiator. Today to talk about the auction at the game store this year. Here's a picture of the table with all the games that have been gathered up to this point. There's more set to the side as well. This was probably one of the more bonkers auctions that the stores had over the years, at least as far as I've encountered. So, we'll cover the games I've sold or tried to sell and the games I picked up, among other things. First off, Acquire. This one got a little bit of a bidding war for it, so I got more than what I was expecting for my, what I say as a minimum. Yeah, it was complete. I made sure it was complete before I left for the game store today. There's always a reprint out there to find if I ever really miss the game that much. But it's a fairly basic game, and while I don't mind playing it, I don't really need it in my collection that badly. And then next up is Azul. That one got even more of a bidding war for it, so it sold for a lot more than I was expecting. I included the Crystal Mosaic expansion. I didn't get to feature it as part of the series, but it basically adds new boards with preset files and a lot of free spaces. Some of them had one side has like the times two value, and the other one I believe increased values for rows and multiples and all that. But most of all, it had the holds a little plastic thing that holds the tiles in place, which in case it gets nudged around, tiles can still remain. But yeah, it sold, and I'm happy that's going to somebody who is actually gonna hopefully enjoy it. And then I sold a black box for like bottom price. I set a very so the minimum price you can put on something is $1, and it managed to sell for that $1. I didn't mind putting a low price on it because it was missing orange tokens, but it's still playable. And really, it's just a game that can replicate with graph paper, really. But it's because it's easy to replicate that I don't mind uh, selling this one off that much. Next up is the Book of Runes. It's a book, a bag, set of runes. I managed to sell that one for very little. Surprised when I found it at Goodwill when I did. But yeah, the runes are kind of iffy in terms of quality. Yeah, sometimes bringing non-game stuff to the game store not always not always the best thing. Then again, we had someone bring comic books, and those managed to sell mostly. But sometimes, if it can be argued as a kind of a game adjacent thing, it's possible to kind of market it as you could use this as an in-game divination system or whatever. So I have to see, I have to find out what they end up actually using it for. And then next up is Settlers of Catan. I got a slight bidding war for it, but again, I started at like rock bottom price. I had to replace three pieces that were missing, so I put in some substitutes out of my craft wood that I have available, having to cut the wood and then paint it to substitute for the pieces missing for those players. Yeah, fairly basic game there as well. A good gateway game in general, but I don't really need it. I mean, I can remember the overall concept of the game well enough that I don't need to have a copy for reference. And then sold Cloud Fantasy for the minimum price that I sold it for, that I set for it. A lot of people like to refer to it as the poker chip game. But yeah, I just don't really think I was gonna make much use out of it. The annoying thing was how much money I spent on the boosters for this game. This was probably the biggest overall loss for me in terms of getting money back. I mean, it's comparable to the last time I had a smartphone, and the money I got back for that after having it for a year and spending several, like $30 a month for hours on it. Yeah, it's money I'm not getting back, but that's all right. Probably gonna stop getting collectible games like this from this point forward. And then after that, we got Commands and Colors Ancients. That one got a little bit of a bidding war for that one. I just, it's a bit of a space hog, and I don't know if I'm really ever gonna get around to playing it or having the time to get in depth with the systems. But I'm glad I got to at least have the game long enough to learn about it. I do want to do more historical battle type stuff, but probably with someone who's more familiar with the rules than I am. So if anyone's willing to take the time to really learn it, I'd probably be up for playing with them. And this ended up being the last game sold for the entirety of the auction. Core Space Firstborn. I I pulled it off the used game shelf because nobody was going to spend that much for it. Sold it, set the price reasonable, I think, but it's still lower than what I paid for it. So I'm just glad it sold it all. I just wish I could have gotten a little bit more for it. But yeah, space dungeon crawler type of thing. That it would have been nice to play it with someone at least once before selling it off. And would have hoped that it would have been someone who would have gotten it knowing what they were getting. But it's just another reminder of whatever spend out of my auction winnings this time. I want to find something I should, you know, feel like actually keeping. Okay, so this one, Court of the Dead, Morris Call, ended up not selling because it had the highest starting price out of all my stuff, and nobody wanted to spend that much, even that much for it. I thought it'd be at least one person would go for it, but apparently not. But we usually have this section after the auction is over of bringing out the no sales and just negotiating for getting things at a lower than starting price. One person said that they're waiting to deal with some stuff with their bank and then they'll be able to pick it up. Someone else came up willing to pick up the game right there and there, but not at that price. But that's it. So I'm going to be holding on to the game for one person to get situated with their bank stuff and pick up the game from me. and I'll go into store credit and go towards more games for the tabletop game series. But it's an all right game. I wouldn't be too upset about holding on to the game as part of my collection period. It's all right, but I thought I'd try to make some space. Next up was the Cyberpunk card game, originally a no sale. Someone asked me about it afterwards, and I sell it for a lower price, but it's fine. It is a dead card game, and it's not Netrunner, so it's gonna be a hard sell period. But yeah, as I even told them, the starter decks are not optimized. If you can make use of the boosters and make things better, because it's a game worth trying at least once, but definitely make the decks better. And then next up was Dragonborn. I set a fairly low price for it, and it just got that minimum price. Yeah, I didn't think I'd really end up with this game in the first place. It's just that one day of I'm in this thrift store in a mall, and it's just these random ass cards sitting there. It's like, what is this game? Going to look into it and picked up the starter decks and then never got around to playing with anyone. So it's in someone else's hands, and I hope they have all the fun with it. It is an interesting concept. And then next up was Dune. I managed to sell it. It got a bit of a bidding war for it, so I got sold for more than minimum. It's nice. It's a classic game. It's a great game. I just don't think I'll ever get around to playing it with people. And I'm aware of the concepts enough that I don't really have it around as reference. It's it's an all right game. I just know I'm probably never gonna get around to playing it. So I'm glad it's going to someone who's probably gonna make the most of it. But yeah, if you've never played Dune before, it's something I recommend trying out at least once because it's a good experience. And then this one, Eve, the second Genesis card game, no sale. I set it a little high, or perhaps a little too high, because nobody wanted it at $20. It's a good game. It's just kind of hard to do anything with it past the starters because boosters are impossible to find. It feels like anyway. I don't mind holding on to the game though. Probably demonstrate it. But yeah, this has been the auction to get rid of all the dead card games I've been picking up because really there's not a whole lot more I'm going to be doing with them. And then this, the 40K terrain, this was the big sale for me. This was the big bidding war for my stuff. Got to see, and it sold way above what I set them minimum, and it just kind of just surprised the hell out of me. It's funny because I won these as part of this sweepstakes thing of paying for tickets and putting them into specific drawings. Just the fact that I managed to get that money back and then some was was a surprise. But I don't think I can try the same strategy with anything else that they put up for the sweepstakes in the future. But there was someone else selling their box of 40K terrain, and it went for about as much, being even though it's only one box. It was like pretty close to what mine sold for, which is surprising. Terrain is a big thing for mini's games, and there's that demand for it. After that was Globalization. I set a fairly low minimum for it, and it sold. Thank goodness. And then, this I had card sleeved for it. It's an okay game. Some of the humor just doesn't quite land, but it's an alright game of set collection. I'm sure there are better set collection games out there, but this is an interesting approach. But I figure it's probably, as much as I wanted to play it for Tuesdays, it's just kind of hard to get it to the table. But who's, whoever's got it now, I hope they have, about as much fun as I did, or possibly more. Then Dot Hack Enemy went for the minimum that I set it for. Again, trying to get rid of all the dead card games. Card sleeve and all that. So for some of these games, I have like the boxes that the cards came in pinned to my wall as it's part of my wall art. So I don't know if anyone ever wants the boxes that the decks came in just for collectors purposes, but some of these I'll still have pinned up on the wall for fun. But yeah, Dot Hack Enemy was. I still like to reminisce on the game of this is the first time I ever won a card game tournament for like an introduction to the game and won a T-shirt. And I honestly wish I still had that T-shirt. Continuing on with dead card games is Hecatomb. This one got a little bidding war, even though it's low price. The people bidding on it was nice, getting a little bit more than I was expecting. I should have clarified the booster box holds everything up to 3 copies of the card if I have it, and then the starter boxes are all the extra cards and the broken shit. It's again, this is the one game I hope someone can figure out how to do digitally, because that would be awesome. Do a digital version of Hecatomb would be a chance to make Sangorl City a reality. And there's Here I Stand. It it got featured towards closer to the end of the auction, middle to the end. And at first I wasn't going to sell, but one of the people working on the auction was like, you know what, I'll buy it for that price. It's one of the higher priced items that I set, and it sold for that minimum price, which is decent, which makes it the second highest out of the things I managed to sell. It'll be the third if the one person comes back for Court of the Dead. But yeah, I really just don't have the time for this game. The person it sold to, hopefully, they can figure it out. They can put the rules down and demonstrate it because I still want to play this game at least once. Hopefully, it's Ottomans. And then we got the L5R cards, which did not sell, so those are sitting in my locker. Red games are just kind of hard to sell sometimes, especially when they're like dead ones. But I'd like to find someone else who also has the older L5R stuff and just maybe play with them at least once. Because L5R is an interesting approach to a card game. And I just kind of like the world of L5R as well. I, I'll, I also have the RPG and I still want to do something with that too. Yeah, this was the other, like, okay, clearly I need to stop getting the card games at this point. I keep there are a few card games I have in mind that I keep thinking about, but I may just have to say no. Then we got linebacker football. Oops, didn't adjust it in time. So this got me a little more than the minimum, but probably not what I originally paid for it. I made it a point to clarify, yeah, the actual rules to gridiron football are not included. I had to look them up on Wikipedia. Yeah, this one's another interesting approach because you have a very limited set of players and various skills, and they all have to fill all the positions in your team, offense and defense. Um, I hope I can hear from them if they choose to try it out and see what they thought of the game. 'Cause I think it's interesting, but not for me. Then there's Megacorps, which I'm glad I got to play at least once before selling it off once again. Wow, the picture on this is really messed up. It's weird. But yeah, it's just if it would have some kind of reference cards, it might help. If it had more of the paper money, that would be even nicer. Games like this are why I invested in my little coin set for games that make use of money. Also, we have someone else in the our board game league that already has a copy anyway, which is also used to be one of mine. But yeah, this one did sell for the kind of low minimum price I set for it. So that's that's probably going to be the last time I'd ever pick it up. And then we got Pandemic. One of two copies of Pandemic are still at the auction. Funny, this one actually went for quite a bit more than what I set for the starting price. And the other copy didn't go for as much. But apparently this one was bid up by accident. Yeah, I'm familiar enough with the game I don't need it as a reference. And cooperative games I don't really have a whole lot of time. Uh, I don't really have a whole lot of opportunities to really do the co-op games all that much. This is a game I could play solo, but I have other games I want to play solo instead. But if I ever miss the game, I'm sure I can find it somewhere else for fairly cheap. And then there is Power Grid, which sold for a little bit more than the minimum I set for it. It's an alright game. It's an interesting balance of bidding on the power plants, buying resources on the market, getting into cities before other people. It's a good game, and I'm familiar enough with it to have things in mind in case I need inspiration. But I'm wondering just it feels like there are moments where one person can take the lead and just kind of keep it. And it's really hard to knock them out of it. Not that it's impossible, but it's really hard. In a game like that, I'm not sure if I really want to keep that around. And then there's Cube. It's the it's a game set bare minimum price and got my bare minimum sale out of it. It's a solid game. It's just not one I'm probably going to end up playing, especially at the game store. I might have held on to it for my mom's sake if I knew whether or not extended family would ever visit anytime soon as a game for them to play. But really, I have a lot of games, a lot of other games I would suggest instead. And next up is Small World. it's a good game. I just don't think it's one I'm gonna be able to bring to the Tuesday nights all that often anyway. And there are probably other games a little bit more suitable for that. I mainly want to go find a copy of Vinci one of these days. I don't know if they'll ever bring that back, but either Vinci or Small World of Warcraft instead. Basic Small World is a fine game, but for my purposes, I don't really need to hold on to it. And then we had the roll up space mat with the plastic ships that used to be that were from Eclipse, and subsequently replaced with the ship pack one stuff. I figured I'd include the ships because I'm done with trying to figure out an idea with them. And since it's a space map anyway, I'll just combine the two together as a nice little package deal. And it sold for the minimum that I set it for, and it's fine with me. Yeah, I originally got the space mat because I had Star Trek Ascendancy. It's like, okay, I need a reliable space mat for it. It had functioned okay. It had like one slight little issue in it, but it worked all right for what it was. And fun fact, the cardboard tube I was keeping it in is from when it was after I got into Madoka Magica, and I started getting some old scrolls, and one of the ones that I had for Sayaka came in that tube. So I had to make sure to cross out my personal address with a Sharpie just to make sure nobody can ever use it. But yeah, just ships in a space mat, just get some dice and a ruler and just make up your own space game and just have fun with it. I hope they do. Okay. Next up was Splendor, which was originally a no sale, and then someone talked to me about it. And it's like, okay, I'll accept that much less, but it still hurts taking quite a bit of a loss on that one with because it's not just the base game, it's the expansions, the promo nobles, the 3D printed gems is really gonna miss those. The fun fact is I still have the Splendor gem chips in case I ever want to use them for something. But Splendor's not a bad game. I just don't really have space for it with what I have in mind for what I want to keep around here. And then we got Steam with the expansions. Uh, that actually did sell for a little over my minimum price. Yeah, I had to cut down the Steam Barons board to make it fit in there. It's just a little bit off one or both ends of it. So I think it didn't have to cut anything useful, critical off. But also got the blue train set in there and the stock token set for it. And map expansion set one. I kept thinking about while I had this game, getting more expansions. I just never got around to it. I think I saw the number of expansions like, no, I don't like the game that much. But I hope whoever's got it, I can maybe play with them someday. Then I got to sell Stellar Conquest for a decent amount more than what I put for the starting price. So I'm happy with that. This one I had all the tokens for it, new dice, sleeves for the planet cards. Yeah, it's an interesting approach to space conquest. It's one of the early approaches, and I'm glad I got to get a copy and go through the rules and get an understanding of how the basics work, and just seeing the evolution of space games from Stellar Conquest, to eventually Twilight Imperium, and then further beyond that into Eclipse and other games. it's interesting to see. I always dream of going into space and exploring other stars. It's a dream to hold on to for sure. But the game, not so much. So I'll take it to ride Europe for more than the starting price I had in mind. I'm surprised that it got bid up quite a bit. Considering what I paid for it, if I ignore the fact that I had to buy the sleeves, then I had got my money back for sure. In that, but the card sleeves come in, and it's like, oops. But it's not a bad game. I just the kind of game it is. I don't know if I'm gonna be bringing it out Tuesdays. I would have liked to have tried it out at least once, but I'm familiar enough with the Take It to Ride system that if if anyone else ever brings in something like this, I know how to play, and it's not gonna be too hard. I'm s- yeah, I don't think I'll be covering any of the other versions of Ticket to Ride as far as the channel is concerned, because I think Europe was enough. And then I sold Tokaido for a little bit more than the starting price for it. It's an alright game. I saved the cards, I got everything in bags. It's well kept together. I just it's an alright experience. But I don't know if I'm gonna get around to playing it more than that. But I do recommend it. I'm just having to sort out what kind of games I really want to hold on to and which ones I want to get rid of. It was tough. But I had to cut the collection down, and this was one of the casualties. But thankfully, I got some money out of it. So there. And finally, I managed to sell off my Flash Force Hololive stuff for the minimum price I set for, and it was like the third best performing out of all the things I sold. Yeah, I think the game's mechanics are great. I'm just not a big fan of some of the all the various anime worlds, so it's kind of hard to want to check out anything beyond the one thing I'm familiar with and really do like, which is a Hololive. And I sold the playmat with it as well because it's a game that really needs to have the rules as visible as possible. And I made that playmat specifically to for that purpose. But yeah, that was the last of all the things that I had available to sell. So at the end of it all, I have 3 items that didn't sell out of 32, which is not bad. And I know how much I'm getting out of it, and I'm going to leave that a mystery. This is not the best I've ever done for an auction, but I'm still getting more than what I spent on the stuff that I'm going to be featuring here in a section. So the first game that I bought, which was also the first lot on the docket for the auction, was called Spirium, very industrial. I have yet to really get deep into figuring out what it's about, but it was it was cheap, and I'm like, you know what? Might as well start out with getting let's let's try to get as much cheap stuff as I feel like getting to have things to cover for the Pillar Loaf's tabletop game series. And I've managed to get quite a bit towards that end. And I'm looking forward to featuring this and the games I'll be continuing to show for this video. So the next game I picked up was called Meeple War. So with all the trademark talk lately about using the word meeple, kind of surprised that this one was was basically left unchallenged. Uh, I'm curious to explore the combat and all that with this game. It just it just looks so silly, but sometimes silly is where the fun's at. I think if it's was it, it's only yeah, it looks like it's only 4 players. 4 player games are going to be hard to run during Tuesdays unless we start getting more players and can break up the group into two. But I do want to try it out. And then the next one I picked up was called Space Dealer. This is a German game that includes English rules at least. It is up to 4 players, but there's rules to have 8 players by getting 2 sets of the game, which is interesting. It's kind of getting multiple sets of the same game is usually kind of rough. It's especially rough with freaking living card games. It's it's one of the things that always bugged me about the living card game approach with regard to starter sets. It's like why could they just have the maximum copy limit for each of the cards and instead of encouraging people to buy up all the starters. But yeah, this I'm always curious for more space games, especially making money in space and all that. Um, if I see another copy of this game for as cheap as I got it from this auction, I might very well get it just so I can have the 8 player game. 'Cause 8 player games are few and far between, and I'm always up for trying big player games. This one is probably biggest score that I got. The Duke with all sorts of expansions and a playmat. A 2 player game of moving units, capturing enemy units, flipping your unit to the other side. I'm always up for trying out chess likes or other games of that nature, just to see what kind of different approach they can take to the 2 player uh, war game. But yeah, this there's just so much shit for this. I'm just honestly amazed I got it for as little as I paid for it. This is then again, this was the one thing that I probably spent the most on at like I'll say it $22. So that's a hell of a deal right there. And I'm looking forward to finding someone else to play this game with because I really don't want it to gather dust. I want to be able to play the games that I'm buying from here. After that, I bought Unmatched. I got it for its starting price. But yeah, the whole Unmatched system is just used with all sorts of characters. This set, Battle of Legends, is King Arthur, Medusa, Alice, and Sinbad. Is interesting. Might also look into getting this second set for it if that ever comes around. Yeah, it's when you can make this kind of universal system and then apply all sorts of different things to it. That's pretty cool. I mean, that is one of the things I respect about Vice Schwartz, even if I don't have the game anymore, is that versatility of the system. Yeah, this is probably one. This is so one of the things I'm probably going to have to deal with. And it's going to annoy me to no end. Is all the card sleeves I'm going to have to buy for all the games that I picked up. Because holy crap, I I protect the crap out of my games, and I really want to protect this one because I'm going to play it quite a bit. I hope. Then I would pick up Jarl. So I've never watched the Vikings. I might have to check it out one of these days. But the reason why I got this is because I picked up the Duke. and the person who owned that one also owned this one, and they told me, yeah, your Jarl is compatible with the Duke, so it's entirely possible to have Knights versus Vikings. So that sounds like a fun time to me. Yeah, it's I just really want to play more two-player games, and it's hard sometimes, but it's something I'm maybe looking to do more often next year. And then after that, I picked up Zombies. It's just a basic random ass game. It's fun. I'm kind of annoyed that I opened it up and found that it's missing the rules, but there's probably rules for it online. I'm just, if you own a board game, never lose the rules. For crying out loud, never lose your rules. And if you ever do, find a replacement as soon as possible. Print it out wherever you find it. Don't leave board games without rules or essential components that cannot be replaced. If something's missing a component, come up with a replacement as best you can. But yeah, this one is been around for a very somewhat long time. I want to say it's early 2000s. Just a random. You go through the city exploring it little by little. And you encounter zombies and you can find items and such. You can get more health and bullets. And you're just trying to survive. You're either trying to kill 25 zombies or reach the helipad. But it's just the spirit of the game and the atmosphere. Just makes it fun. So it's just fun for something to mess around with, which I might have to bring to the Tuesday League. And then after that, I picked up Covert. This one I've never played before. I really don't know much about it other than it's very spy thriller-y, which I'm always I'm always up for more spy thriller type stuff. Which is why I'm still holding on to the target, even though it's not that good of a game. But yeah, it's just been kind of on the back of my mind for I don't know how long, to just kind of keep an eye open for. And I was surprised to see it, so it's like, okay, this is going on my watch list of games I'm hoping to pick up, and this got to be one of them, along with the Duke and a few others that I'll explain here in a sec. But it is only 4 players, so it's probably something to bring in on a Saturday or with a small group on Tuesday. We'll see how it works out. And then for the one game I was really happy to get, Deus. Not just any copy of Deus, but my old copy of Deus that I sold off previously. And I know it's my copy because it has the token containers that I put in there specifically. And of course, the cards are sleeved. Another Pillar Game Collection signature. But yeah, this is a game of playing cards, unleashing the effects of all the cards. And those cards come with placing a building, which gives you presence on the map. Try and deal with barbarians on the map and build temples to the gods. It's a good 4 player game, and I really hope I can play it more times because it's just such a fun experience. I know there's an expansion out there too that I might have to look into if it's still available. Sadly, this company is out of business. I believe they went under this year or last year. Pearl Games. Really unfortunate, but I'm glad we got to get at least this this game out of it. And then the next thing I got for fairly cheap, MechWarrior Dark Age Max. Very specifically for the one in the center, the Highlander Atlas, which I wanted because okay, so around the around the time of MechWarrior Dark Age, there was a tournament at this game store. I didn't have the money to enter, but I wanted to play, so game store owner makes a deal with me. Um, I can play, opening these boosters for the draft to draft my army, but he gets to keep the most valuable mech, valuable item that I pull from it, which is probably going to be a legendary or unique mech if I pull one. And I pull the Highlander Atlas, specifically the pilot name Arabi Childs, the 293 point mech, which left me 7 points to take one 5 point infantry. But the current game store owner that I interact with played against me that day and were considerably frustrated with how unkillable the Atlas was for the units he had. Because his units couldn't do a whole lot of damage. The Atlas has really tough armor. But now I finally have this Atlas and it's going to forever sit at my desk as a trophy for a long forgotten battle. It just looks cool. You know, MechWarrior Dark Age does catch a lot of shit, but I think for that time, it was worth checking out. Then I picked up Cash and Guns. I had to get into a slight bidding war for this one from its starting price of $1. So I paid quite a bit more for it, but it's still cheaper than buying it brand new. This is a silly, kind of dark, humorous party game of trying to split up loot, but also pointing foam guns at other players and seeing if they back down or if they call your bluff. And your cards will either wound them or not. You only have 3 chances to wound somebody out of 8. And you're trying to collect various loot for various amounts of money. There's like the art cards that are worth more points as you get more of them. It's kind of almost exponential in a way. There's just straight up money cards. There's healing wounds. There's diamond cards, which aren't worth a whole lot individually, but if you have the most at the end, you get a fairly nice bonus. There's also taking the opportunity to go um, be the Godfather for the next round, which gives you a chance to dodge one bullet. If you've got multiple people aimed at you, you might have a tricky decision to make. But if you can keep it, you can you're the one taking first out of the pile. Yeah, the trick is to not take too many wounds, or else you're completely eliminated from the game. If if no one points a gun at you, you're able to take from the pool. If someone points a gun at you and you back down, you don't get to. If you don't back down, but they draw a click card, then you get to pull from the pool. If you don't back down and they pull a bang card, you're out for the round and you're wounded. It's like a really deranged game of chicken, and I kind of like it. Apparently, there's at least expansion and a promo machine gun, so I'll have to look into those. And finally is a game I've already featured for Pillar Loves Tabletop Games, and that is Hyperborea. And again, this is another copy that I used to own, precisely because cards are sleeved. It's just, it's a good game. And you know what? I've got room for I've got room for this one. Yeah, I'm always selling games. I'm also finding my games back at the auction as well. So sometimes I just end up picking them up again. But yeah, this has been just a bonkers as hell auction. in terms of, yeah, quite a bit of board games, but also people selling comic books and art and individual battle mechs and the MechWarrior Dark Age stuff and some card game stuff. It it went for about 4 hours, which is a reasonable length for what we had to deal with. There were some technical issues, so we got a little bit of an intermission, but it's just a fun time going to the auction and just seeing games you probably never even seen before. Games to stoke your curiosity and maybe inspire some game ideas of your own. And also, just just some funny inside jokes and everything else. It's always good to have somebody at the head of the auction just making things fun because it should be a fun time. If you ever get a chance, just look for your local game store and see if they're ever having events like these. Just see what set up a budget for what you're prepared and willing to spend. And also bring a freaking notepad to keep track of how much you're spending on the games you're bidding on, so you're not spending more than you have. And if you're selling stuff, keeping track of what you're getting for that as well. So you can maybe start planning what to do with it. I will find out tomorrow what I have to work with, and I will pick up at least one thing. But first, I want to get through the games that I picked up at the auction for Pillar Love's tabletop games, for sure. But yeah, um, other auction memories have been up at gaming conventions in Denver, and those ones went late into the night. Like they just they just have so much crap. Pretty amazing though. Yeah, upcoming content. Pillar Love's tabletop games. Covert, Deus, Cash and Guns, Space Dealer, Zaduke, including Jarl, Unmatched, Zombies, Meeple War, and Spirium. We don't need to do the Pillarless Tabletop Games episode for her. Hyperborea because it's already been done. And then episodes for the games that I pick up in the game store. Again, I'm picking up at least one thing. It's going to be a game I might have talked about in the past regarding Board Game League Finals. Hopefully, it's still there when I get there tomorrow. The main thing I'm gonna have to spend money on card sleeves because holy crap, I will protect the ever loving crap out of my cards always. Yep. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and I hope that if if you've got the time to do it, that you can check out a local game store in your area and play games and join in events. And if they have an auction, find something you never knew you needed until you found it there. Alrighty. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.